Hello, students, and welcome to week 3 of MMDD 157 Digital Audio Design. Week 3, we're already getting deep into the semester here. I hope that you're doing well. Hope all of your classes are going well. And once again, I hope with this course, you're starting to get a better sense of kind of how things flow, better sense of how to work this course into your schedule and ensure that you go through all the materials each week and you're able to complete your assignment and all that grand old stuff. This week, in many ways, is very similar to how last week was structured in that you have one lesson to go through and an assignment to complete that is associated with that lesson. This time around, though, I would say that this lesson is a bit more interactive. Those of you, again, from my creative thinking course may remember doing things like the ideation workshop and all of that. I wouldn't say that this week is quite as overwhelmingly intense as that might have been. But all that to say, this is meant to be a time where you're taking a lot of notes and you're doing a lot of drafts, sketches, whatever it is that best helps your creative process unfold. That's what you'll be doing this week because we're getting toward now in the project ideation and research stage, right? So last week you were looking at a lot of pre-existing VUI applications and wrapping your head around maybe some of the differences between some of the main smart assistants out there and what kind of applications are available for these different assistants, as well as how you access those applications and how they function and all of that grand old stuff. So hopefully last week you found value in learning that stuff and you feel like you better understand kind of this field a little bit here now that you're going to jump into trying to come up with your own idea and your own approach to making a VUI, right? So I'll go ahead and get into it here in the Blackboard. Here we are, MMDD 157 Digital Audio Design once again. And just like with previous weeks, you're going to have this in an announcement that you're watching right now with this video. And you're going to go see your weekly content this week in your Project 1 Voice User Interface area, where you will now have access to this folder, which is Project Ideation and Audience Research. And so if you open that, you will see a lesson called VUI Project Research and Ideation and a VUI Project Framework assignment submission. So you'll notice once you get into the VUI Project Framework assignment that it pretty much says that you're going to use the notes taken during this week's lesson, as well as any additional research and ideation you may have completed to put together your framework. Okay, so all of that to say, it is very important that you take notes and you do ideation and all of that kind of stuff, because you're going to have to, in this submission, not only include the components that it requires, but also show your creative process with each of these components in terms of how you came up with these ideas, right? So the whole point here, and this again extends from things in creative thinking, is that the idea isn't you're just going to come up with what you want to do with your project on the spot and suddenly that's it. You kind of have to show that you did research and you thought about this and you came to a conclusion through that process. And so that's why it's important to be able to show your creative process in these kind of submissions, because it shows me, of course, how you came to these ideas, but it also makes you reflect on yourself and how you best come up with these sort of ideas and how you make decisions in a creative way and all of that kind of stuff, which is all great learning experiences for you. So before I get into the assignment, I will first briefly kind of scroll through the lesson. There's quite a bit of content in it because it's really just meant to be a big research ideation kind of fest, if that's a good way to put it. There's a lot of different videos in here and some articles and some activities for you to complete that all, in one form or another are just meant to get you thinking about this project. Not only just the project itself, but of course, who you are making it for, right? And what you're trying to solve for them, as well as how you're going to make it. The specifics, of course, will come a bit later in the course in terms of how you'll actually design your prototype. But for right now, it's more about the ideation and the idea stage at this point of the project. So here we are, VUI Project Research and Ideation. There's an overview here where I basically say that, yes, the objective of this lesson is to get you started researching and ideating to develop a framework for your VUI projects. The information, resources, and activities below in this lesson are intended to help you get started with this process, right? And get started means that you are encouraged, of course, to explore your own research materials outside of just this lesson, especially as they pertain to your specific ideas that you're coming up with, right? So, for example, when watching any of the videos or reading any articles included in this lesson, take notes of main ideas that stick out to you or just any thoughts that come across your mind, right? This will be a component of your project research and ideation, and once again will be used to show your creative process. And you are, however, still encouraged to explore materials outside of this lesson to inform and guide your project, right? Because since it is fairly open-ended in terms of what you're going to do for this project, you're going to need to look up specifics about that, right? So again, my classic example, if you were making a VUI pizza ordering app, that would require specific research into pizza ordering apps from a voice assistant, right? Which may not be covered explicitly in this lesson. First, there's an introduction here on technology and visual impairment because this really is about designing for accessibility, right? And so it's important just to note how actually technologies over time have started to be designed more for accessibility in this way. And it's good to get yourself kind of familiar with what the accessibility features are actually on some of the devices that you may interact with every day but never use because you kind of don't have to, I guess, right? But it's very important to keep in mind when it comes to designing for accessibility, and I think I have it in here, is that, yeah, it's important to note that designing for accessibility often has benefits outside of just the specific group that accessible design may be for, right? So especially when it comes to this VUI that you're creating in this class, yes, your target audience and your target user will have some form of visual impairment, but that doesn't mean that someone who's fully sighted couldn't also have benefits from using your solution. And an example that comes to mind is wheelchair ramps, right? They may have first been put in place for people who were in wheelchairs to more easily be able to go up, right, floors and stuff like that. But there's so many other uses for wheelchair ramps that people have, right? So imagine if you're rolling a case of luggage and you need to go up a floor. Would you take the stairs or would you take the wheelchair ramp, right? It's way more accessible to roll your luggage up a wheelchair ramp than it is to pick it up and carry it up the stairs, which I've had to do many times because there isn't always an accessible way to get up the stairs, unfortunately. So that's a great example, right? Or, you're pushing a cart that has stuff on it, again, and you reach a flight of stairs, you have to take a wheelchair ramp, right? And so all of that to say that these things that may be designed for accessibility have benefits far beyond just whatever specific, use it may be built for. Anyone can kind of use it, right? Anyway, when it comes to getting a sense of how modern devices may be designed more for accessibility purposes, this is a great video to show you how that is. And this is a wonderful YouTuber. She's Canadian. Her name is Molly Burke. I learned about her through my girlfriend. Just unrelated, my girlfriend likes watching YouTubers, right? And I've seen a lot of Molly's videos, and they're fantastic. And this is a really good video of her. She's a blind woman showing how she uses all of her devices. And you will be, I think, surprised to see what sort of tools and features are actually in these devices to help people use them without looking at them, basically. And so just watching this video will give you a better sense of how people like her actually use their devices, right? Just because you can't see your smartphone screen doesn't mean that it isn't still fully usable. And you will see how that actually works for Molly in this video. But I do highly recommend, again, since this is the research stage of your project, to check out more of her videos. She's on YouTube. She makes all sorts of videos about all sorts of things, right? Even right here, the first video, 5 things all sighted people should know about blindness. Again, since you're designing for accessibility for this project specifically, but also who knows what other, things you may design in the future, it's just great to give you more of a perspective on life from her perspective, right? And the things that she deals with as a blind woman and things that you would probably have never thought of in terms of how she lives her life. So great person there, I think, to look at for research. And there's an activity here for you to do as well. Again, something like turning on the accessibility features on your phone and seeing how it works, right? Again, this gets you a better understanding of your target user base, your target user group who may use these accessibility tools with their devices, right? And that gets into more audience research and empathy, right? Those of you, again, from creative thinking most likely remember the importance of empathizing with your audience. And I even have a link here to the creativity and empathy lesson if you really want to go back and have a taste of creative thinking again. That's there, right? Again, just for you to click on if you want to look through it. If you know someone close to you who, has visual impairment, it would be fantastic to interview them, ask them questions about their daily life. If not, though, there's a lot of information out there on Google and YouTube, things like there with Molly Burke. These are some interesting videos that kind of show you what certain visual impairments actually look like visually, which will again give you broader perspective in terms of who your audience base is for this project and just make you more empathetic, right? That's really what this is all about. There's also a lot of articles here for you to go through as well with tons of information about just the area you're looking at with this project in terms of, right, things like human-computer interaction for visually impaired people, all that kind of stuff. Here's another video of a guy just talking about his daily life, right? All about just getting a better sense of who your audience is and how they live their life. And that's with any design project, what you should be doing, right? So that's why in this specific context, since you were assigned to create a VUI that solves a problem faced by people with visual impairment, that's why your audience research is based around them, right? And as you've done more audience research, you're going to eventually think of who your specific audience is for the project you would like to create, right? And that gets into things even outside of just having visual impairment, but like what age is your target user going to be? What's their level of experience with technology? Do they live alone? Are they in a city or in a rural location? Who are their favorite bands, right? Again, it's important to note, especially when designing for accessibility like this, that you don't just think of your audience group as just, only having one thing about them, right? So someone like Molly Burke, she makes it very apparent that she doesn't want people to just see her as only a blind person. There's so much more about her. She's just a person who lives in the world. She has all sorts of interests, talents, everything. She just happens to be blind, right? And so having that sort of perspective when you approach a project like this is very important. To know that your target user is just a person. They just happen to have this feature about them, right? And having a more refined, specific target user and target audience will help you, of course, when it comes to developing and designing your project and your solution and all of that kind of stuff. And I have here a fun video from SNL about an Amazon Echo device being made specifically for an elderly audience. And it is a funny video, but it shows, again, just a humorous example of creating a VUI Smart Assistant for a specific target audience. And you'll notice how they do that through humor in this video. And an activity, right, to make an empathy map for your target audience. Again, taking you back to creative thinking. This is an excellent tool to get you into the mind of your user. So this would be a fantastic piece of ideation and research to have as your creative process unfolds, and you can include it, right, as part of your creative process in your project framework submission. And then here's just some insights on how you can ideate, right? And once again, I have links here to ideation techniques and the design sprint that you did in creative thinking. So if you really want to take, just take a look through this again and realize, okay, mind mapping, yeah, role-playing, starbursting, right? All of these different tools that you learned in that class that you can use here to start coming up with ideas. And the design sprint that you did in that class as well, right? A very sort of fast-paced way to just put down a bunch of ideas and decide something to move forward with, right? So you can just look through these resources to refresh yourself on those, because these are the tools that you should be using when it comes to thinking of ideas for this project, right? These are things you've already learned how to do, and you've already reflected on how you best do them. So here's an opportunity to utilize those tools, right, to come up with new ideas. And once again, here's another video for you to watch, which shows how smart assistants and voice control technology can be very empowering for this specific blind woman who is talking here, but also for anyone who uses these things, right? And ask yourself, right, how will your project make your user feel? And this ideation phase here is really just about thinking, okay, I have this target audience, but I need to be thinking through, like, what are specific problems they may face that could be solved through VUI technology. And again, it doesn't have to be something that is specifically just about how the person can't see. It just happens to be an issue that they face that you could solve with a voice-controlled application. And another activity here for you to do. And these activities as well, you're meant to kind of reflect on them, make notes about them. Again, it's just about making you, again, get more into your audience's shoes, seeing things from their perspective and feeling things from their perspective, all of that kind of stuff. This component, creating a system persona, is very specific to VUI design. So if you made it to this part of the video, that's great, because this is a very important thing that you need to learn basically this week in the class. A lot of this from before is just, utilizing things from creative thinking and things you may already know, just applying them to your new specific audience group and considering designing things in an accessible way. Now, a system persona, though, what it is it defines a personality of your system. And this is a distinct component of VUI design that makes you think of how your VUI will interact with users. And so when you've used any voice user interface before, last week you would have used one for your case study, talking with Siri or talking with Alexa or Hey Google. Those systems, the robots that I like to refer to them as, they're talking to you and they have personalities. And so it's important for you to start to think about what are their personalities and why may they be like that, right? Here's examples here of BB-8 and R2-D2. They are systems, right? They're robots and they interact with users, Luke Skywalker and Finn, maybe from the new trilogy. I don't know it as well. Anyways, they speak in bleeps and bloops and stuff to their users. But, Luke Skywalker, when he's talking to R2-D2, he understands what R2 is saying somehow, I guess, through the Force. But all that to say that when R2-D2 is doing his bleeps and blops and spinning around and stuff like that, wouldn't you say that he has a personality, right? This robot, this system has a personality that's specific, right? So how would you describe R2-D2's personality, right? And that's robot. And it's, again, having a sort of conversation back and forth with Luke Skywalker. But all that to say that, yes, there's a character here, right, that is coming through the communication. So when it comes to, once you've determined what your solution is going to be and what your problem and all of that for your project, how will your system act? How will its personality be, right? Are they professional and cooperative? Are they playful and curious? And just keep in mind that, they should complement your target user in some way, but it's kind of a fun experience, right? It's almost like anyone who plays D&D creating a character, right? You're making a character here of your system, and this is going to help guide how you write their dialogue, basically, in future stages of this project, so that their personality comes across, right? And you can just think about, characters or people even that may just influence or inspire your system's persona. And so, for example, if your VUI app is a game for kids, maybe the system has a little bit of SpongeBob in them, right? Or if your VUI app is a news service, they may be influenced by a CBC anchor, right? And that kind of personality and the way that they kind of present themselves. And it can be fun, right? It's an experiment. It's kind of a character creation exercise to think about who your system would make the most sense as, what kind of persona would make the most sense for this specific thing that you are creating, right? And this is a fun video to show how you can actually, I guess you have to buy it, but you can turn your Amazon Echo to be Samuel L. Jackson, okay? You can watch this quick video, but also just ask yourself, okay, if you're talking to Alexa and it's Samuel L. Jackson, and you'll see in this video that he has his own specific responses to things, how does that change the user's experience of talking with this system, right? From the traditional Alexa compared to Samuel L. Jackson, right? And how does that influence the experience, basically? And so how can you best create a system persona that best sort of improves your user's experience of what you will be creating? An activity here as well, and then just conclusion, right? And there's a final article for you to look at too. Again, I'm glazing over some things, highlighting others in this video. This will be a lesson that you go through on your own and you watch all of these videos on your own, but I'm just giving a broad kind of scrolling through it, overall sense of what this lesson is about so that you kind of have some idea going in what to expect. And then that gets to your project framework assignment, which here we are, right? It's worth 10%. Let's do this Friday, 11:59 p.m. EST. As I said at the beginning of this video, you will use the notes taken during that lesson that we just kind of went through, that you're going to go through on your own after watching this video, as well as any additional research or ideation you may have conducted outside of that lesson, and you'll put together a project framework that sets a foundation for developing your VUI project. This will sort of be your reference when it comes to building out, how conversations will go with this project and just kind of what it is, basically. And so these are the main components of the submission: the project problem and solution. What is the problem you're trying to solve and how will you solve it? Your user persona, who is your target user for this project, and your system persona. What is the persona of your VUI system? So these three things are very kind of refined, succinct things to have in this submission. However, each component should be well executed, of course, in a final form, with accompanying research and ideation to show your creative process at each stage. So for instance, your problem and solution should be pretty succinct and clear, when it comes to, stating them. But then you're going to kind of have to show, okay, to get to such a succinct and clear problem and solution, here is, the idea dump and the mind map I made that helped me get to this point, right? That's kind of what it's all about. So I just kind of detail each component here. I'll go through them in this video. Being your project problem and solution, being able to clearly state the problem your project is addressing and your design solution is key for moving forward with any design project, right? It's all about the problem and solution. So ensure your project addresses a real problem faced by your users, found through research and ideation, not just an assumption that you had that actually isn't necessarily grounded in research or things that you looked into. State this problem clearly and succinctly. Back up any strong statements with research and evidence. Make sure you state which smart assistant as well your VUI application is for at this stage, right? So your solution can say, again, is this going to be for Google, Alexa, whoever that you plan to build the solution for? So here's an example problem, right? There's no current way for visually impaired users to order pizza with Alexa. And alternative pizza ordering Alexa skills are limited. And here's just a link, right, to pizza ordering Alexa skills. Users may still order a pizza via a phone call, right, old school, but that lacks the modern features seen in online pizza ordering apps. So that's a problem, right? My user base, if they want to order pizza, they can't use their Alexa to do so. So now, how will I address this problem with a VUI application? Once again, in a clear and succinct statement. Well, the example solution, develop an Alexa skill that allows users to order pizza online in a way that's easier and more convenient than calling on the phone, and includes modern features like pizza tracking, right? So basically, ordering pizza with Alexa. Easy, right? And that's why it's all about, if you can think of a very specific thing, right? My user wants to order pizza, but they hit this barrier. Okay, so I will make this VUI solution so they can order pizza. That's a very clear-cut kind of process in terms of this is a problem, this is a solution. And it's not overly complex or anything either. I'm not saying that it's going to be ordering food from every possible restaurant in the world. I'm saying pizza specifically, right? So keeping it very refined and focused in scope will help immensely with this project. So that would be the problem and solution, okay? That's just an example there. You will come up with your own and state it in your own words, but it should be like these are, just very kind of succinct and clear and just gets the point across, right? Then there is your user persona, which you should have probably made before in other courses, I would think. So having a strong user persona will help guide your project development because it guides who your project is designed for. So you will create a professional audience persona of your target user that includes demographic information like age, gender, and location, as well as psychographic information like interests, goals, and frustrations. You can develop your user persona from scratch or use the information in templates here for guidance in this link. If using a template, make sure you cite where it is from. This is a link that has 30 examples of user personas. And it actually does a great job as well of just kind of explaining what a user persona is if you need a refresh. And it has tons of examples. Oh, no thanks, I'm good. Tons of examples of different templates of various user personas that you could make, right? And so I'm perfectly cool if you use a template for your user persona in this class. Just make sure that you cite where it's coming from, right? Don't act like you came up with a template. That's plagiarism, and that results in not only a 0, but also me having to report you, which I never like doing. So just include a link of where the template came from. But you're going to input it with your own information of who your user persona is, of course, right? So find one of these templates that you feel works best for what you want to say about your user, and then you can kind of fill it out and modify it as needed. And, you can change the images and all that kind of stuff. So that's your user persona. And remember, your user must have some form of visual impairment, but that does not mean it's the only thing that runs their life. It's simply one aspect of them of many. So if I was to make a user persona for my pizza app, I could say that it's literally someone who maybe they're blind, but they really like pizza. There's more to them than just that, of course, but that would make sense as someone who would come across this issue, right? They can't order pizza with Alexa. And they would be an Alexa user too, right? I would have to put that in there with the user persona so that it matches with the fact that I'm building my skill or whatever for that specific platform. Then there's the system persona, which I talked about in the lesson just a bit ago, but a unique aspect, again, of VUI projects is developing a personality for your system. This will guide how your VUI converses with users. Use a similar approach to your user persona above and create a persona for your VUI system. You can include similar demographic and psychographic information as well as any people or characters your system persona is inspired by. So again, you can use a similar template you did for your user persona and just now say that it's your system. And like I said, it's kind of like a create your own character kind of thing. Who is your system? What kind of age might they be? What might their interests be outside of being a robot? Right? Again, just thinking about your system more as a personality than as a program. That's kind of what that's all about. So you'll include that. And then once again, the creative process. Each of the above components, so your project problem and solution, user persona, and system persona, should be accompanied by materials of your creative process on how you came to your design decisions. This can include notes from your research and ideation or any other sketches or drafts you may have made. You can also include links to resources like videos and articles that help guide your creative process. Maybe, you really came up with the problem you wanted to address because you watched a specific video on YouTube. You can just say, hey, I watched this video, I saw what this guy was doing, and I realized that's a problem that I could try to address with my VUI design. Your process materials do not have to be perfect. They shouldn't be perfect, actually. It should be kind of rough notes. That's what that stage is all about. And you're instead just it's meant to help you reflect on, again, your own creative process and show how you came to your ideas. Rather than just looking at this and saying, okay, here's my user, here's my system, here's my idea, done. No, you have to show that you actually spent time researching and ideating this stuff to come up with these things. And the submission format, compile all of these components in a document or slide deck and export to PDF format for submission. Make sure to include your name and the course title at the beginning of the document and title each section so they are clear, right? So you can say, here's my user persona, here's my system persona. Ensure each component includes relevant research and ideation materials. Once again, if done on pen and paper, you can just take pictures, right? So if you do a bunch of mind maps and stuff, you can just take a picture of it and then you can just include it and say, hey, this is when I came up with what I wanted my user to be, right? And you'll be evaluated on all of these different components, right? Your project problem and solution, audience persona, system persona, and the documentation of your creative process. There's a more detailed rubric you can check out on the assignment as well. And the late policy, 5% penalty per day late, excluding weekends, after 10 business days. The assignment may no longer be submitted. So that is your assignment for the week, okay? Again, this is, a pretty large task ahead of you, but you're going to be spending your time for this class this week doing all of this. And when it comes to your research and going through this lesson, you can kind of take some liberties in terms of, for instance, there's all those articles there. You can kind of skim through them, find the information you find is most relevant to you. But you do just want to spend ample time, right, getting into the mindset of your users, thinking about life from their perspective, and really starting to think about, what you can do to somehow, solve a problem that they may face. And, thinking of your system persona and all that. It's meant to be, a fun, creative project for you to do. So hopefully it is that, right? And like I said, last week you were looking more at the current landscape of, VUI applications and kind of how they function. Now you're thinking about what's an idea that you would have to put in there, basically, in these application stores that might solve a specific problem for your target user. And then next week, we're going to look at conversation design, and you're going to actually build out your happy path, which you should have kind of learned what that was, I think, last week with your VUI research. But you're going to start to actually think about what's a conversation that my user would have with my system, right? So that's why having your project framework is so important, because not only do you need to always be thinking about, what is the problem and solution you're addressing with this thing to keep it focused, but also when you're thinking about how your user may interact with the system and you're going to be basically scripting out conversations, you have to be thinking about how your user would talk and request things and how the system would respond. So that's why it's very important to kind of have them very well fleshed out as characters, essentially, because you're going to pretty much write a script that's a conversation between these two characters. And so that's what this framework is all about. It'll be a reference kind of thing for you when it comes to building that stuff out, because you're going to say, okay, how would my user actually talk in this scenario? How would my system respond, right? And so that's what that's all about. And that's what we'll get to next week. But for now, focus on your research and your ideation and have fun with it, and enjoy the process, right? This is meant to be you getting in the creative zone and, stretching your skills, stretching your mind a bit, and just improving every step of the way and learning and having a great time. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can always book a meeting with me as well if you would like. And yeah, have a great week. Good luck.